Ross, we appreciate the time as always, sir. Hope you're doing well this week.
Hey, man, absolutely. Thanks for having me on. Glad to be here with you.
So, Ross, typically whenever, you go and grab a weapon via trade, we're like, okay, well, you got, blank quarterback, a new weapon. The problem is we still don't know who blank is for the New Orleans Saints, but whoever blank is, the Saints went and got him a new weapon yesterday.
Yeah, absolutely, and a big-bodied one, which I think is the big value here. Whether it's for Spencer Rattler or whether it's for Tyler Shuck, getting a guy that's 6'4", 6'5", 210 plus pounds in DeVaughn Vele from the Denver Broncos is a really, I think, a positive move for New Orleans. Like, I don't think this is a guy that comes in and immediately becomes your number one, number two wide receiver, of course, but certainly somebody that can be really helpful for these young quarterbacks. Caught 75.9% of the passes that went his way over his 13 games last year. Notched a really good success rate when targeted as well. This is just a guy that seems to be able to come down with the football when it's thrown to him, and I think that that's something that you're really looking forward to for one of these young quarterbacks, to have that sort of bigger-bodied wide receiver target to help them move the chain.
Ross, do you see this move coming in light of maybe these some of the tight end injuries we've had? Now, you look at Devon Vele, he's played in Denver last year, nearly 70% of his snaps from the slot. So he can kind of take that position of over the middle, whip routes in the flat, like that big-bodied, just nice person, like nice, easy target to hit, like kind of taking that place of a tight end. Is that kind of like a kind of what the Saints are thinking about their tight end position right now?
I think it's a part of it. I think that the injuries there certainly have a big impact. I mean, you look at guys like Jack Stoll as well. The guys that are behind Juwan Johnson, Jack Stoll, Trayton Wells, Seth Green, Michael Jacobson. Some of these guys have some real good pass catching ability. I mean, Trayton Welsh is a former wide receiver, for instance, but it's really been Juwan Johnson that's been the focus of that position in the pass catching department. And then I think that the other part on top of that too is, you look at the wide receivers that have stood out so far: Chris Olave, Rashid Shaheed, Brandon Cooks, Mason Tipton. All those guys are under 6'2",
yep.
Right? And all the guys that they had, or have rather, that are 6'2" or above, above means went to injured reserve. You got Kevin Austin Jr., Dante Pettis. You've got Donovan Peoples-Jones. They haven't necessarily, blown the lid off here with the opportunities that they've gotten. Dante Pettis has been the best performer out of all those, but he's not necessarily a jump ball guy either, right? And so I think that a guy like Devaughn Vele kind of comes in and fills or brings that prototype that the Saints didn't have at the position as well. So I think it's a little bit of just really looking at the pass catchers as a whole, as an entire group, and looking for what isn't available. And one thing that the Saints didn't have was a 6'4", 210-pound guy that runs a 4.47 that can go out there and be, a real first down converter for you, or third down converter for you, excuse me, and a possession guy that can still be a 3-level threat. They didn't have that guy, and so this is kind of the player that fills that void across the wide receiver and tight end room.
Now, you gave up, some pretty good assets, certainly the fourth rounder. That's certainly something, but I'm still surprised Vele was available. Like, when you go back and you kind of listen to some of the practice reports for the Denver Broncos, like, this is somebody that they talked a lot about. And it's not like, he is a player that hasn't proven anything. I mean, he has over 400 yards receiving just a year ago. And this is a player that it felt like they were really excited about. And so I know you give up a fourth rounder, which, again, that is certainly, some draft capital that means something, but I'm surprised he was available.
Yeah, me too. But it goes to show you just how good that wide receiver room is over in Denver right now. I mean, they just re-signed Cortland Sutton. They've got more talent at that position as well. They drafted Pat Bryant from I think he was from Syracuse, if I remember correctly. I think he was from Syracuse. A guy that I really liked in the draft this past year, and he's been standing out quite a bit. And so I think that kind of is a little bit of what made him available, even a player that has been as successful as him, to be able to come in and do that. He was the team's third leading wide receiver last year at 475 receiving yards. He had 3 touchdowns as well. And so I think that, like, all of those things kind of combined are a big part of the, the reason why maybe he was able to be made available based on what maybe some of that other talent is in that room.
Yeah, Ross, let's kind of get the crystal ball out, kind of explain to the listeners about like what the impacts are with the moves that they've made, this year and certainly last year as well. What impact they're going to have on the 2026 draft. I mean, I'm looking now, I think we have 5 picks right now that are our own: first, second, third, fifth, and sixth. I believe a 7th rounder was traded in the move for Devon Godchild, the 4th round, of course, for this move. I believe there's a potential of a compensatory 4th round for Paulson Adebo signing in free agency, but we could lose that, right? If Isaac Yadam, or is it Yadam? It starts for most of the season.
Yadam.
Yeah. Yadam.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's right. Yeah,
Yadam.
That's how I always remember it. I'm always like Yadam. I think that's a big part of it too. Is they might have said, you know what, we might get this compensatory 4th round pick, and so can make this move. But there's still a great chance that they don't get that, because Yadam's going to be the starting corner, as you mentioned, and so it's very unlikely, I guess, that they cash in on that. But I also think if you look at their history over the course of the past 10 drafts, 4 of those years they didn't select in the 4th round at all. So they've consistently kind of used that. It's 40% of the time, 40% of drafts, they've used that 4th round pick to move around or make a move as opposed to actually make a selection. And then if you look at sort of the 6 players that they've drafted before this draft, right? Danny Stutzman, Quincy Riley, we believe those guys are going to be good football players, but then you kind of go and you expand that out to, Nick Saldiveri and, Jake Haener and Rick Leonard and, C.J. Gardner-Johnson was a get, but, you look at those 6 players that are out there, and there's maybe a pair of them that you go like, oh, those were solid picks for the time that they were in New Orleans, C.J. Gardner-Johnson and David Onyemata. And that's going back quite a ways for both those guys now. And so I think that there's sort of that other piece, too, to where, they were able to walk away with 2 really good 4th round picks, we believe, in this year's draft. But this year's draft was notably really, really strong in the middle of the draft. We don't know what next year's draft looks like yet, but the Saints do, because they've been scouting those guys for years at this point, right? And so I wonder how much of it is the Saints also acknowledging that, hey, this is what can be exchanged for a 4th round pick right now could be more valuable than what that 4th round pick might be able to be used or turned into in next year's draft.
So, Ross, obviously, the conversation is still going to surround the quarterback position until we actually know who the starter is going to be. But we are not that far away from the Saints and Cardinals in real action. No more preseason. We've seen both quarterbacks start games. A couple of questions here. How do you think they play the 3rd preseason game? And then when do you ultimately think they're going to name their starting quarterback?
Yeah, tough to predict what they're going to do in that 3rd preseason game, but I imagine that the focus is going to be maybe getting some of the starters out on the field. Kellen Moore's kind of hinted that some of the veterans that haven't gotten an opportunity to get out there have kind of bent his ear a little bit and said, hey, I'd really like some, game exposure. And so I'm curious if he's going to give them that. In Wednesday's practice in the Superdome, they kind of ran this 1s versus 2s kind of scrimmage, to where 2s started off defending a 7-point lead against the number 1 offense. The number 1 offense was out there in full in terms of who was healthy, right? Dylan Raden's in for Trevor Penning in this case. And then, that was kind of the scrimmage that they ran. And to me, that sort of indicated, okay, well, maybe they are getting ready to give some of these starters an opportunity to be able to go out there and perform as a starting unit, that kind of dress rehearsal that we hear about all the time in that final preseason game, to see if they kind of go, that route there. And so I think that might be what we see. And if I'm the Saints, I give both quarterbacks some time with that first team, but I don't know, that might not be possible, right? Does that screw up rhythm? Does that risk too much injury? Things like that. But it feels like at this point, there's only a couple of things left to kind of learn about these guys. And one of those things is, what do they look like with the full first team unit in a game situation? And so how do you create that environment? Maybe going drive for drive might be, insufficient in terms of all the other things, but it feels sufficient for what you need for the quarterback battle. So we'll see how they handle it, though. And then as for announcing the starting quarterback, I don't know that there's a lot of value in hiding it. In terms of going up against the Arizona Cardinals week 1 and everything, you're already so much a mystery going into that game one way or another. As a newly led head coach, new quarterback, all that, all the newness is still kind of going to work in your favor anyway. And so I would say probably if I were making the decision on when to announce, it would probably be that sometime in that week when there's availability after that preseason game. But I'm going back. I'm talking to the team first. I'm talking to the quarterbacks first. I'm talking to the coaching staff first. We're making that decision in-house, and then I'll take it out to the media. I'm not in a hurry to, show up post-game and do it. That's the one thing I definitely wouldn't do.
Ross, do all the quarterbacks warm up with a rugby ball?
So the rugby balls have been around since Keith Williams came in. They're a training tool for the pass catchers. And so the rugby balls, what they do is that you kind of throw them to the receivers for a little while and then get them used to the size of the rugby ball. And then they throw the football to them, which is much smaller. It makes the football seem much smaller than it is. And so that's part of the way that they kind of keep warm on the sideline sometimes too. And with Jake Haener being the guy that was on the sideline during that game, he was out there throwing the rugby balls to those pass catchers. And
so it wasn't just him having like some QB guru back home that's like, all right, watch this, throw with a rugby ball.
No. They've been doing the rugby ball thing for a little while now for the pass catchers. Now, what I don't know is have they, did Scott Tolzien see that and go, oh, that would be great to kind of get the hands ready for, the quarterbacks too, and then kind of like did that way. But, at some point somebody's got to throw that thing to those receivers in order for that drill to work. So I imagine that's probably what that was connected to.
Look, Ross, I got to tell you, man, I would hate throwing that ball. That would screw me up so bad. But I get it from like a pass catcher standpoint. But Jake Haener, man, he's all in, dude. He is he's feeling it. He is feeling it with that rugby ball. All right, finish this sentence for me. My name is Kellen Moore. I sit down to a press conference and I say, okay, guys, it's over. Quarterback battle is over. We've made our decision. We're going to throw the full weight of this organization behind. We are ready to announce a starter. And this starter is...
I'm going to be consistent with what I've said from the very beginning, and I'm going to say that the starter is Tyler Shuck. I think if they were going to name Spencer Rattler the starter, they had their opportunity to do it after he led that big comeback, game-tying drive against the Jacksonville Jaguars. They had their opportunity to do that. This, to me, feels like they're giving both of these guys every opportunity, and the guy that's going to benefit from getting more opportunities is the rookie that's going to grow at a more exponential rate for his first year. And so I'm gonna say Tyler Shuck. I would personally put Spencer Rattler out there, but I think that this organization wants Tyler Shuck to be out there, and they're going to throw their full weight of the organization behind that.
All right, there he is, our guy, Ross.
It's my prediction.
That's what it's going to be.
Yeah, Ross, you heard it. Stamp, guarantee, boom, from Ross Jackson. There it is.
Breaking.
All right, Ross, we appreciate it. Check out Ross's work, LouisianaSports.net. Hosts the Locked On Saints podcast as well, but obviously has the Saints covered on the website. Again, LouisianaSports.net. Ross, we appreciate it as always, sir.
Thank you, guys. You take care. Stay safe. I'll talk to you soon.